The race for a cure. We've seen a lot of promising news this week on the vaccine front. What do you make of the results from AstraZeneca and Moderna?
Well, it's very hard to characterize complex scientific things in a sort of simple to understand format. We don't know if these vaccines will work. We don't know if they'll work to avoid deaths. We don't know if they'll work to avoid transmission. That's why we're working on so many first-generation vaccines and a whole bunch of second-generation vaccines that, although they'll take more time, they are more likely to be extremely effective. It's great the U.S. government has been willing to fund vaccine manufacturers. Our foundation is partnered with them on that. That's something in my regular phone calls with Dr. Fauci, we update each other on, okay, how are we working with various companies? Which ones do we think
So next week marks a huge milestone. We have Operation Warp Speed is going to begin phase 3 for 4 of these vaccines. Right here in the U.S., they're trying to do 30,000 for each of those 4 vaccines, about 120,000 people totally. When will we know? How do we know if these vaccines are working?
Well, there's 3 things you'd like from a vaccine. You'd like it to be very safe in all the populations that you indicated for, no side effects. You'd like it to block transmission, and you'd like it to avoid the individual who gets the vaccine getting sick. The phase 3 endpoint is slightly different than those things so that we can accumulate events quickly. So we aren't doing it like a long-term vaccine thing. And even calling it warp speed is scary because it suggests, that you're willing to make trade-offs against safety, which you should never be willing to do. The FDA is being pressured to allow what's called just a correlate approval. Fortunately, they've held the line on that to this point because we wouldn't know enough just based on the antibody levels. And, these trials, the bad news, of course, when we have many cases is good news for the trials in that they may accumulate events faster than they would have otherwise. But there'll be a lot of uncertainty about how good these vaccines are. The first generation, they said a 50% effectiveness, and they won't know the duration there. So these are going to be likely partial solutions that will improve over time. And so it's too bad, people think that just that phase 3 approval will be the end of the epidemic.
Well, I want to ask side effects. The side effects for the Moderna vaccine sound concerning. We looked. After the second dose, at least 80% of participants experienced a systemic side effect, ranging from severe chills to fevers. So, are these vaccines safe?
Well, the FDA, not being pressured, will look hard at that. The FDA is the gold standard of regulators, and their current guidance on this, if they stick with that, is very, very appropriate. And the side effects were not super severe. That is, it didn't cause permanent health problems for the things there. Moderna did have to go with a fairly high dose, and so to get the antibodies. Some of the other vaccines are able to go with lower doses to get responses that are pretty high, including the J&J and the Pfizer. And so there's a lot of characteristics of these vaccines. It's great that we have multiple of them that are
Bill,
going out there. And yes, I think
you know the data better than I do. But the data showed that everybody with a high dose had a side effect.
Yeah, but some of that is not dramatic, where it's just super painful. But yes, we need to make sure there's not severe side effects. The FDA, I think, will do a good job of that, despite the pressure.
How many doses of the vaccine will we need?
Well, none of the vaccines at this point appear like they'll work with a single dose. That was the hope at the very beginning. Maybe one of them, particularly in the second generation, won't surprise us. We hope just two, although in the elderly, sometimes it takes more. And so making sure we have lots of elderly people in the trial will give us that data.